Here.
Hey.
There we go. Okay, cool. Yeah.
Oh my God. Thank you so much. We have slides.
And you've got people now.
Yes, we have some people. Yes. All right. So very much appreciate the last panel. They're going to let me just go real quick, and then we'll be able to hopefully. What's the panel about? But getting acquired, right? So you're going to talk about remote companies, and then you're going to go get your exit, which is going to be great. Okay. So I want to be able to start my talk off today with asking everyone a question. And I don't know if any of you have 4-year-olds or have had 4-year-old children, but I currently have one right now. And my daughter asks me like 60 to 70 questions per day. So I'm totally in this mindset at this point. So my question that I have for everybody here is not just why? It is, do we hate our employees? No. And I love that. Because it seems like a pretty simple question, right? And a pretty simple answer. Do we hate our employees? Of course we don't. But here's the reality, is to get the truth from this particular question, I have to take you back to 2020 and this guy. And I know that a lot of you probably have a little bit of PTSD from that experience, but listen, we're going to get through it together. Here's the reality. During COVID, we had a horrific situation that happened to everyone. However, I think one of the best silver linings from that process, in my opinion, was remote work. First off, employees and employers saw a 34% and 54% respective increase in individual productivity on both sides. Generally, because we've talked about this before, most people in an office are just pretending to work as opposed to actually getting something done. And also, employers saved over $700 billion in costs just from their office costs, and employees saved on average $4,000 per year just on commute costs, which I don't know about you, but I've been dealing with the Paris traffic at this point, and it is horrific. It was like a 67-minute Uber ride from the airport to here, which is wild. And the reality is that everyone is fundamentally very, very stressed out at this point. We've just seen Amazon push all of their employees back to the office. I actually, if I can give you the information at the end of this, I just today got their EMPS report that was just leaked, which we can talk about. So, do we hate our employees? Well, I think that we obviously don't, but I think it's a little bit more complicated than that. This is, in my opinion, the coolest graph, if you're a remote work guy, that you can possibly think about. So this little section right here is the biggest increase in productivity in the history of the United States. And this report has been running since 1948. It is the biggest single increase in productivity. It's bigger than a dual monitor. It's bigger than a raise. It's bigger than a really great EMPS report. What happened during that time? Well, this guy happened that time, but also this, and even this. This is my desk with all of my coffee cups and my Oculus Rift on the desk, and the PlayStation controller. This is the reality of remote work. This is where it's at right now. So I believe, much like Andreessen and Horowitz, that remote work is a permanent civilizational shift. It's a consequence of the internet itself that's maybe even more important than the internet itself. And if anyone knows Andreessen and Horowitz, they're pretty smart people. So in today's presentation, what I want to be able to teach you is what happened in 2020, what is going on with the return to office mandates that we've currently seen in the last few months, who is actually responsible for that, and then what are we actually going to do about it? Before you run out of the room, and I very much appreciate everyone staying an extra 20 minutes while we screwed up these slides. My name is Liam Martin. I'm co-founder and chief information officer at TimeDoctor. I'm also a core organizer of Running Remote, which is the largest conference on remote work. And then we also wrote a book 2 years ago, which became a Wall Street Journal bestseller, specifically on that subject. And I'm really passionate about understanding how work works. So we have team members in 86 different countries all over the world. We're really passionate about working remotely, and we've been doing it for almost 20 years. So we definitely were doing it before it was cool, and then it became uncool, and I think it's coming a little bit more cool now, which hopefully by the end of this presentation, you'll be convinced. So question for everybody before we kind of jump into this, how many of you think remote work is going up? couple people. How many of you think remote work is going down? Quite interesting. Okay, how many of you think that remote work is like staying steady, not changing at all? Thank you, weird guy in the back. Very much appreciate that. Here's a really great quote from HBR. They did this massive study, and they found out that 76% of employees say they're more productive when they work from home, but 67% of managers say they aren't. So there's this huge dialectic between these two groups of managers and employees that have this conflict. And I've done at least 100 talks on this particular subject over the last 5 years. And people come up to me all the time and they ask me these types of questions like, no one's actually productive anymore, are they? Nobody knows what to do. Or I don't think these guys are actually working, or maybe remote work is BS and morally wrong. And we don't have the audio on it. But I don't know if anyone recognizes this particular quote from Elon Musk.
You're asking everyone else to not work from home while they do.
Remote work is bullshit and morally wrong, is essentially what Elon said. And love him or hate him, I think he's completely wrong on this one. So this is my buddy Nick Bloom's graph. He is the preeminent academic on return to office mandates from Stanford. And he actually has 2 data sets here. So this is where remote work started. So before COVID, we were at about 4.5% of the US workforce working remotely. 2 months later, we were at over 62%. That's the biggest transition in work since the Industrial Revolution. But the Industrial Revolution took about 80 years, and we did that in March. So if we're thinking, oh yeah, this is just a very easy transition and nothing big happened, this completely changed work and is probably the biggest single thing that's occurred to work in the last 200 years. But this green line right here is not where we've been for weeks, months, or quarters. This is where we've been for the last 2.5 years, at 28.8%, if you want to get very specific about it, of remote work occurring. It has not changed. It's been completely flat. The guy in the back was right. Thank you very much. You'll get a book later. And then I also have this one, which is the Castle Back to Work Barometer. And it's actually, I include this data set here because it is specifically for commercial real estate. It's not a pro-remote work think tank. And they have also shown that 48.8% of people have never gone back to the office. Now, you think to yourself, well, what do you mean? I've seen all of these articles about everyone going back to the office. Amazon just last week ordered everyone back to the office. What's going on here? Well, let me explain that to you, and I want to be able to put on my tinfoil hat for a second in the next 5 to 6 minutes to explain it. This is 995 Market Street in San Francisco. It's a 64-story building, I believe, and in 2019, it was sold for $62 million. Does anyone know what it sold for last month? $6.5 million. This is the WeWork building in New York City, and it's 32 stories. It's very, very nice. It's what's called a AAA building, which is only about 5% of all office space. In 2016, it was $285 million. Last month, it sold for $8.5 million. This is AT&T Tower in St. Louis. It's actually the tallest building in St. Louis. It contains the corporate headquarters of AT&T, which is one of the largest telecommunication companies in the world. In 2006, it sold for $205 million. And this month, it sold for $3.5 million. It's a 98.3% drop in value. Here's the reality. Commercial real estate is a $4 trillion asset class that's worth approximately $1 billion at this point, but no one really knows it yet. So who owns commercial real estate? Well, it's these groups, and you probably know a lot of them. Banks own about 45% of commercial real estate, private equity, government organizations, insurance companies, asset managers. Does anyone notice something here that is not on this graph that should be on the graph? There are no people on this graph. No individuals own corporate real estate. The residential market, 87% of that market is owned by people. So would a bank really devalue its largest asset? 57% of all of its debts are specifically owed towards corporate real estate. So you don't want to devalue that, do you? So if these are the people that are actually doing this, who are their accomplices? Well, I really want to be able to kind of tell you how commercial real estate works and how it's very, very different from residential real estate. Does anyone own a home? Anyone a homeowner here? Quite a few people. So this is how you buy a house. You put 10, 15, 20, if you're self-employed like me, more than 20% down. You get a 25-year amortization on your mortgage. And at the end of that process, you get a house and the bank charges you about a 60% interest rate on that mortgage, right? It's a pretty good transaction. Commercial real estate is completely different. Let's say you want to buy a $100 million property. Commercial real estate is what's called a non-collateralized form asset. So what does that mean? It means you don't actually have to put any money in order to buy a commercial piece of property. So if I want to buy a $100 million property, I say, I'd like to buy this $100 million property, and they say, great, here it is, here are the keys, go for it. It also never is supposed to actually complete its amortization. So you have a 5-year term, you pay off 10% of that particular loan, then you come back to the bank and you say, I'd really love to, I put some new clients in there, I did some renovations, it's not worth 100 million, it's worth 150 million. And the bank agrees with you, and then they issue you a $30 million loan at 0.5% interest. And so it's constantly being refinanced. No one owns commercial real estate except for banks. So this is a pretty wild situation. If you look at the $36 billion in commercial real estate loans that came due this past year, just in the United States, 75% of them were insolvent. 75% of them did not pay their mortgage, okay? So in the residential space, about 2 to 3% of the residential space doesn't pay their mortgage. What would happen if 75% of homeowners didn't pay their mortgage? We would have blood in the streets. But everything's fine, right? I mean, we haven't seen any change whatsoever. It's because you're seeing these institutions control it. So banks are responsible for it, but who are their accomplices? Well, cities, for one. This is New York City's square footage in terms of taxation. So 13% of all taxation, 13% of all square footage in New York is commercial real estate. But it's responsible for 45% of all income for the city of New York. So everyone's talking about moving commercial real estate over to residential. It will never happen. If I was the mayor of New York, would I lose 45% of my income inside of my city budget? Of course not. I want to be able to make sure that those commercial properties are continuing to operate. Another big group is the media, right? I talked about these articles before. And so this one right here by Reuters, this is actually based off of a survey between JP Morgan and WeWork, which most academics at this point have completely denounced as absolute pseudoscience. This Globe and Mail article is the same one. It was actually run by Blackstone, who 56% of their portfolio is commercial real estate, which is terrifying. If you're in Blackstone right now, you probably are. I would get out. And then we've got Mark Benioff from Salesforce. Mark has got this really nice building in downtown San Francisco. I don't know if anyone's been there in the last couple months. It's called Salesforce One. It's $1.3 billion. He just finished it 2 years ago. It's 13% full. $1.4 billion. And it's 13% full. He cannot give it away. So there's a reality change that needs to kind of click for everybody. Going on Amazon, I threw this slide in just recently. Amazon exec says, it's time for workers to disagree and commit to an office return. I don't have the data to back it up, but I know it's better. I don't have the data to back it up, but I know it's better. Listen, here's the reality. And I talk about this a lot at our conference, Running Remote, and in the book, Running Remote. When you look at well-run organizations that are remote, their managerial layer is on average half the size of an in-office environment. The reality is that the mid-manager needs to change and needs to move from being a manager to being a leader, focusing not on the inputs, how much time you're spending in the office, but your outputs, what you're actually producing as an individual contributor. And this fundamentally needs to change. And then we've got this recent article that just came out a month ago. I love how everyone's talking about how it's collaboration. I just got like 10 comments on a YouTube video that I put together yesterday about that. It's all about collaboration and in-person communication. And Wells Fargo is doing a fantastic job at this one. I don't know if anyone had seen this, but Wells Fargo employee found dead in her cubicle 4 days after clocking in. No one is in the office. They are Zoom rooms that you drive to. That is it. Now, this is, my designer decided to put this in Comic Sans because he said if there's any designers in the office, they'll even get more scared at me using this particular font. This is called the Urban Doom Loop. And it is as scary as it sounds. It's actually run by most economists today believe this is currently happening. So here's how the Urban Doom Loop works. So at the very top here, you have employees that work from home. And then because of that, commercial real estate loses its property value. And then because of that, property taxes fall, which means that cities lose their income and they need to raise capital in other places, or they need to reduce services inside of that city. And what does that produce? It produces more employees saying, I'm getting the hell out of this city and I am leaving. New York, San Francisco, and LA have all had consistent emigration over the last 5 years since COVID started. Not immigration. They have had no net increase in their population. No one really understands that. People are leaving these cities at breakneck speeds because they're recognizing that this system is devolving at this point. Now, there's a lot of silver linings here. We're seeing really the pushback against this mandate. We only see 3% of CEOs are actually wanting people in the office full-time, which was about 35% 2 years ago. Also, unions are fighting this tooth and nail. We're seeing Germany, Canada, I think this is the United States, all talking about how they want to fight return to office mandates. And also, since we have a lot of probably SaaS people here, Jason Lemkin, I pulled this article directly from his blog. 82% of YC companies are being started remotely. Before the pandemic, it was 14%. And that's this year's number. So new companies are being started remotely because they fundamentally understand that it's a better business model. It's a better way to be able to do business. Now, my buddy Ryan Chartrand, he had this really great graph. This is the Gartner hype cycle. I don't know if any of you guys are salespeople, but you kind of know this, crossing the chasm. So if remote work were on this graph, we wouldn't just be here in the trough of disillusionment, we would be here. We would be like below the graph. It's not looking very good, right? Amazon just ordered everyone back to the office. I'm not really happy about it. Maybe a couple people secretly are, but we have to be able to understand that when you look at where we're at right now, it is not simply a decision that is best for our workers. It is institutions that have vested interests in making sure that we're all back in offices, regardless of whether or not it's good for employees or not. So, do we hate our employees? My belief, and here's the thing that I just got from Amazon, is tomorrow, if you brought everyone back to the office, do an anonymous survey for all of your employees in the office. And just ask them, do you want to continue work from the office or do you want to work from home? So Amazon just did that, and it leaked today. And they went from an NPS of 28 to -7, which is wild. That would take, I mean, you have to really fuck up to be able to get your employees to hate your job that much. Out of a range of 5, 0 being I hate my job, 5 being I love it, Amazon is now ranking, just yesterday, a 1.4 out of 5, which is wild. So I believe that remote work is not going away. You have to be able to adapt now, whether you're in Paris or Cairo or Toronto or Montreal or New York. You have to really recognize that remote work, at least in my opinion, brings employees and employers together. And I think that it's the best way to work. I have been doing it for about 20 years. My book's down here. I'm probably not going to take any questions because these guys are going to come up next, ask me afterwards. And the slide decks are actually available right there. Thanks a lot.